The Thrones of Decay has arrived, and I wanted to give you all my thoughts on the DLC so you can make an informed decision on whether this DLC is worth your hard-earned money. It's no doubt been an extremely turbulent time for Creative Assembly, and I think it's safe to say that the stakes could not be higher for CA to get this DLC right. We all know how much fun I had with the Shadows of Change DLC. But this time, has CA pulled it out of the bag? Have they put this Marienburg landship back on an even keel? Or will it sink under the weight of its iron sides? My name is Blake and I bid you my fondest welcome to Blake's Takes, where today I'll be giving you my take on Creative Assembly's DLC for Warhammer 3, The Thrones of Decay. Is my take hot or not? Let me know in the comments below. We'll go through the 3 factions on offer, and I'll round off the video with my conclusion. Sit back, grab a cup of tea, maybe a biscuit, and let's get stuck in. We'll start with Elspeth Von Draken. Elspeth is basically the anti-vampire. Vlad is just simply no longer the threat to the Empire that he once was, with Elspeth at the helm. With her unsettling Radiance perk, she cuts enemies' healing capabilities by 25%, and her death magic will be perfect to fly over Vlad's head on top of her dragon and drop spirit leeches onto him until he disappears. She also comes with game-changing boosts to the Empire's gunpowder with the Gunnery School of Nuln mechanic. It's a bit like the Clan Scryer Forbidden Workshop. You get major buffs to units by picking up schematics. You get more schematics in fights where you've done damage to enemies with gunpowder units, so you're incentivized to be shooting things all game. Through the Gunnery School of Nuln, you can also get Amethyst units, a variant of unit which will combine death magic and gunpowder. These units are extremely formidable and worth their high schematic cost. Watching a fully upgraded Amethyst Hellstorm rocket battery go to work is truly quite the spectacle. You also get the Nuln Ironsides and Hochland Long Rifles into your roster. Both are excellent complements to your gunpowder builds. Nuln Ironsides being more of a close-range, heavily armoured troop, and the Hochland Long Rifles being more long-ranged, priority target sniping. Both fantastic additions which I've enjoyed using. Disappointingly, the new units don't appear to have reload animations, which I was really rather hoping for. With so many sweeping changes coming into patch 5, I thought this change would be a shoo-in. Maybe in future they'll get added, but I won't be holding my breath. Legendary hero Theodore Bruckner makes his way into the Empire roster, and I love his gravelly, evil-sounding voice. He reminds me of the High Dread generals from England in Medieval 2. He oozes personality, and I love his addition into the game.
That's power!
Tell me about it. I just hear that name and I shudder.
Theodore Bruckner!
Ooh, do it again.
Bruckner! 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 Theodore Bruckner!
Ooh, it tingles me.
Engineer Lords are a lot of fun as well. They buff your gunpowder massively, they have a grenade launcher as their starting weapon, and when they hit level 20, they can mount a steam tank. They're truly an excellent lord which complements your army's gunpowder abilities amazingly. The landship I wasn't really too enamoured by. It serves a similar purpose to the steam tank, but it's a much larger target with less armour, and it's missing a certain je ne sais quoi which I found so readily available with the steam tanks.
It smells funny in there.
No, it doesn't.
Overall, Elspeth has an excellent campaign with a heap of extra units and upgrades for you to play around with. Elspeth's mechanics are very rewarding and pair nicely with her campaign. You'll find yourself hunting down enemies with your gunpowder troops at the end of battles to maximise your schematic yields, so you can unlock more devilish gunpowder upgrades. It's good fun. Now we move on to Tamurkhan. Tamurkhan the Maggot Lord is a brute of a legendary lord, high damage, fast, and a huge amount of HP. Those not swearing fealty to Papa Nurgle will be doing so shortly after Tamurkhan has his way with them. Once he's mounted on his toad dragon Bubelos, becomes a true endgame threat. I love the way you can hear Bubelos stomping around the campaign map. It's a very nice attention to detail. Speaking of attention to detail, toad dragons can break down walls, and they even have their own wall breaking animation, which I absolutely adore. Unfortunately, with the addition of the toad dragon, the beleaguered Great Unclean One seems to have fallen further behind, and now there appears to be truly no reason to recruit him, which is sad. I think a lot of the flagship Great Demons have really fallen behind, and it'd be nice to see them get a rework in future. However, as it currently stands, the Toad Dragon Nurgly Death Ball is fantastic. Have your units blob together in a ball, have a cultist on a war shrine or a standard war shrine of Nurgle in the centre healing all of your units, then have your Toad Dragons and Rot Knights patrolling the flanks. Use the Toad Dragon's Vomit attack to annihilate blobs of infantry as they bunch around your death blob. I've gotten a lot of heroic victories this way, and you can too. Rot Knights are a massive boon to the Nurgle roster. This monstrous cavalry unit is a formidable addition with excellent anti-large damage, and being fast on their feet, the Rot Knights are exactly what Nurgle needed. However, they're a tier 5 unit, so don't be expecting to field many of these things. The first of Tamurkhan's champions, Kazakh the Befouled, allows you to get some more of these, and some Toad Dragons very early, so it's worth pursuing his objectives as quickly as possible to field more of these. Speaking of Tamurkhan's champions, there's a lot going on with these guys as well. Not only can you get some other factions units into your roster, like Mammoths and Chaos Dwarf Artillery, but they come with some interesting quest battles and some cool interactions between the different champions you're fielding as well. It's a well thought out system, which I feel has a lot of flavour. I think CA's done a great job with it. There's a lot to manage as a Nurgle faction though. You'll need to be constantly topping up your plagues for upkeep reduction and settlement plagues for income boosting. It's very easy to fall into negative favour with Nurgle, so again you still need to be aggressive in sharing Grandfather's gifts to maintain his favour. Nurgle has a lot of different monstrous infantries to work with now too, such as Plague Ogres and Bile Trolls. These units are very helpful in your Nurgly heal blobs, and they fit into the Nurgle roster nicely, giving you more offensive options which pack some more speed and damage than what you used to have. They're solid additions. This is another great campaign with plenty of different ways to play it. By picking up different champions and managing to get their fealty up to unlock their units, there'll be a pretty vast array of different strategies to try out. Then we have Malakai. Malakai, the crazy slayer tinkerer, lands in Cracker Drak at the roof of the world, and his campaign is a very interesting one. His airship is pretty cool. Similar to the Vampire Coast ships, you get to take this floating base around with you. But there's more. On the campaign map there's this cool blimp animation whenever you're using it. It's very neat. You also get an army ability to call in the airship, which lets you have early access to a thunder barge for a limited period of time on the battlefield. A useful trick for you to help swat away all those descending Norscan tribes. By completing Adventures of Malakai, the unique mechanic for the faction, you get interesting buffs to your already pretty formidable artillery. For example, when you've unlocked Grape Shot on your cannons, their killing power becomes dramatically enhanced. But they'll kill your own units just as quickly, so you have to be very careful with your positioning. It's a very cool high-risk, high-reward strategy, and all of the different adventures you can go on offer similar game-changing buffs to your artillery, so it's a mechanic you should really invest into. Malakai's start is pretty crazy though. You're going to be at war on all fronts with a lot of legendary lords, so you'll have to act fast to eliminate as many threats as possible in the early game. The campaign descends into chaos, and I think it'll be fun for anyone who's pretty advanced with their Darwi play. It might be a bit too crazy for anyone who's not pretty well versed in how the dwarfs function. Now, the new units the dwarfs get are very Slayer focused. a Slayer Lord, a Slayer Hero, a Slayer Legendary Hero, a Slayer Legendary Lord, Slayer Ranged Infantry, and even a Slayer Artillery piece. I think a lot of what drives my enjoyment for the dwarfs of this campaign are tied into the free updates, where unit tiers were dropped and some of the units were reworked, such as Iron Drakes as an example. There are some cool units in there though, like the big set piece for the dwarves, the Thunder Barge. This thing is incredible, and really feels like a tier 5 unit. It has a vast array of cannons and thunderers on its broadsides. It's even got a couple of dwarves on top hurling grenades down, as well as an enormous harpoon which decimates the health of anything. It's a very cool set piece for the dwarfs, and I'm all for it. Then you have thunderers with grudge rakers, and they're a solid short-range missile unit. As it stands, I think I prefer the Iron Drakes to carry out short-ranged missile operations, but these guys and their shotguns are a nice addition. The Age of Reckoning mechanic, available for all the dwarves, does indeed have its issues. There appears to be a bit of a scaling problem. The amount of grudges needed to be satisfied seems to increase massively between ages, depending on how many factions you've found. This, I feel, is a bug or perhaps an oversight by CA, but I'm confident with some tweaking it'll be a very fun system. It incentivizes you to be aggressive and gets you out of your holds to satisfy some grudges, which I think the dwarves really needed. It's not a perfect system by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's a good one, and with a bit of tweaking it'll be very fun. Overall, Malakai's campaign is chaotic and crazy, which I suppose is on brand for the Mad Inventor. It's definitely got some challenges to it, mainly trying to field enough armies to defend your territory against the onslaught of the Chaos Dwarves and Norskins you'll be fighting. It's probably my least favourite of the 3 campaigns, but only by a slim margin. It's by no means a bad campaign. The others, I feel, are just stronger. And finally, my conclusion. Akin to the Prophet and Warlock DLC, where Skaven got the much-needed access to their firearms they so desperately needed, this DLC provides a similar experience to the Empire. It gives them the tools they need to make the gunpowder parts of their faction really shine. If you love the Empire, then definitely pick up Elspeth. Now, Nurgle gets some much-needed units like the Rot Knights, Toad Dragons and Bile Trolls, and they're solid. They're not quite as game-defining as the Empire's additions, but having some fast-moving, hard-hitting anti-large units on their roster is a huge boon for them, and Nurgle feels much more like a complete faction now with their inclusion. The dwarfs, I feel, get most of their value from the free patch, not the DLC content. The Slayer units on offer I didn't utilise all too much. Malakai's campaign is an interesting one though, and I'd certainly feel like I'm missing out by not being able to field their Thunder Barge. But the rest of the units on offer on their part of the DLC, I feel already existed in the dwarf roster. It's not a bad thing though, getting some more Slayer variants, but the DLC is very Slayer focused. What they have done is rework 3 races in a short period of time, and I think they've done an excellent job with this. Overall, the new campaigns offered by the DLC and the patch feel fun, engaging, and exciting. The mechanics attached to each faction are enjoyable to use and rewarding. They don't feel gimmicky at all. They stay true to the classic Total War formula with interesting and thematic additions, which I think you'll really enjoy. When critiquing this, it is hard to differentiate between what's coming for free and what you're paying for, but it's important to be aware of it. For example, a lot of the things which have made the Dwarf campaign fun, I think can be found in the free patch for the game. The tweaks to the units and the new grudge system have really levelled up the Dwarf playstyle for me. The Dwarf units are by no means bad though. They offer a lot of interesting additions, it's just very focused on Slayers, so Ungrim Iron Fist will do very well out of this DLC. Whilst I thought the Dwarf units were the weakest in the pack, I think the Dwarfs got the best updates to their faction mechanics with an extensive reworking of their grudge system, so make of that what you will. CA have split up the DLC into 3 parts, so if you just want to test the waters, you can maybe just pick up your favourite race from the bunch to see if you'll like the flavour of the campaign that's on offer. I feel that all 3 campaigns have a similar level of quality. I think the splitting of the DLC content is a big win for the consumer. Where $25 will simply be too steep for a lot of people, You may just really like playing the Empire and don't care about the other factions. It's a positive step in the right direction from CA to address how expensive their DLC was getting. Yes, it will cost you more if you're indecisive and decide to go with just one part of it and then decide to pick up the rest later. Obviously, they're incentivizing you to pick up the whole pack. Discounts for bulk purchase is a very common thing. If you're a Nurgle purist and exclusively play as the Urfather's Chosen, then not only are you clearly into some niche masochism, but you're also not going to get any tangible benefits from the other two lords. So I see this as a big win. Despite CA's bungling of Warhammer 3 in the past, I can say that this is a massive jump in quality. There is so much more attention to detail and thought put into the various quests and objectives in the new factions. Warhammer 3 still has its issues, and this very good DLC doesn't absolve CA of their responsibility to the game. A good act does not wash out the bad, nor a bad act the good. But I can heartily recommend this DLC for its full asking price. I've sunk hundreds of hours into exploring the new factions, and I'm looking forward to sinking hundreds more. The new factions are excellent, and the game's mechanics are feeling much tighter after patch 5 than they were previously. This is a big step in the right direction for CA, and I commend them for it. The work is not done though. There are bugs still to patch, and sieges to rework. I trust CA will not rest on its laurels after these energizing new additions have made it into the franchise. I think this DLC and patch 5 releasing along with it are testament to what CA can get done if it's focused, with no hyenas or Pharaoh draining their attention or resources. In the immortal words of Ron Swanson, never half-arse two things, whole-arse one thing. Well, actually, it would have to be three things in that example because Pharaoh, Shadows of Change and hyenas were all pretty bad. Never half-arse three things, whole-arse one thing. Anyway, here's some footage of me enjoying hyenas. I've been Blake, delivering my take. Thank you all so much for watching. And, of course, a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. D, Joshua Krager, Dinkle250, HunterX2, Robert Diorio, Miktar, and Gong. Thank you all so much for watching.